a woman who was educated or a strong woman or who had an opinion wasn't allowed. You know, a woman had to be seen and not heard. I would have been burned. I know I would. Or I'd have been beheaded. Something gruesome.
What would it have been like for you, living in Tudor times as a woman?
I think it would be pretty hard living in Tudor times because of it was men's choice during those times, and they don't think about women or people with a learning disability or anything that's different. In women's in those times, all they're good at is getting pregnant, really, and when they give birth, you don't have doctors around. They use sharp weapons to get the baby out. And now, that to me is very gruesome.
If I'd have been born in any other century other than the 20th century, I wouldn't have existed. Because I was born at 26 weeks, and according to my father, I died about 10 times and was on different machines to keep my lungs working because they hadn't fully developed. I was given a diagnosis 6 months later of having cerebral palsy. I was in hospital for 6 months. So without medical intervention, I can safely say that I wouldn't have existed.
I think, like, you're either, like, put in an institution, you know, because back then there were, like, no wheelchairs or anything like that. Like, your family will probably be ashamed to even have you there. I think it would have been really bad. It's really sad that they were used as sort of, like, comedy for comedy purposes, just to entertain people, which is, like, it's just really horrible, really. Even disability rights only, like, came in like, the 80s. So it's like, back then it would have been absolutely horrendous.
Horrible. I wouldn't have approved all the way in nearly 8th about his business. And there's lots of beheading in that time, and I wouldn't have wanted to be beheaded for some silly thing.
I did a lot of research on what it would be like for me within the Tudor period as a woman of colour. And one of the first things I came across was an article about a book called The Black Tudors by Maureen Kaufman. And it was really fascinating because she spoke about how integrated African-American or people of African-American origin were in society. Women of that time often weren't able to read and write, they weren't very well educated. But Catherine of Aragon came back from one of her travels, and she brought with her a lot of women who were companions, and they were of Ethiopian origin. Not everyone of colour, not everyone who was a woman was underappreciated. Quite often they were held in high esteem, but not necessarily given the recognition that we get today, you know what I mean? I did think when I was doing my research that I'd probably be the kind of woman who would want to be known for her skill set. And I do like being a companion to older people and stuff like that, so I thought maybe I could do that. But then I was like, actually, I think that a lot of what I would like to do involves reading and writing. So I might, pretend to be a man actually in that case. So
The thing with history, it's all best guess. I think I would have been a noble by birth. I know. Which would mean I wouldn't have had a problem with wearing beautiful fabrics and bearing sons as well. I mean, I've got 4 boys, so I wouldn't have been bad, would I? It's not really different from how I live now, really, is it, to be honest? Who knows? Could have married a duke. Unless you got ill, obviously, because illness, no matter how much money you would have had back in the day, leeches just don't cut it, do they? Or bleeding, to bleed you. I mean, I do prefer antibiotics, I've got to say. But I think back in the day, you would have got the best medical attention, but they didn't have any knowledge.
Follow All the King's Falls, click and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next episode.